There's a quiet moment that happens to almost everyone. You replay a conversation in your head for the 10th time. You wonder if you sounded stupid, if you offended someone, if they're mad, if they still like you. And here's the uncomfortable truth psychology has been circling for decades. Most of your anxiety isn't about your life. It's about other people's opinions of it. Today, we're diving into a radical idea from psychology and philosophy, one that sounds simple, slightly terrifying, and deeply freeing. Your unhappiness comes from caring too much about being liked. And happiness? It requires something most of us were never taught: the courage to be disliked. We love to say things like, "I'm just an anxious person," or "I overthink naturally." But psychologists Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga, drawing on Alfred Adler's work, argue something bold. There is no such thing as a worry that exists in isolation. Every worry has an audience. You're not anxious about failing. You're anxious about how failing will look. You're not afraid of speaking. You're afraid of being judged. You're not worried about your choices. You're worried about how others will evaluate them. Even when you're alone, your mind is crowded. And the irony? Most of the people you're worried about are busy worrying about themselves. Adlerian psychology flips the script on how we understand emotions. Instead of saying, "I feel anxious, therefore I avoid the situation," Adler asks, what if you avoid the situation and anxiety is the tool you use to do it? Here's a slightly uncomfortable example, but stay with me. Imagine someone who desperately wants a job, but feels paralyzed before the interview. They say, "If I weren't so anxious, I'd go." Adler would say, what if the real goal is avoiding the risk of rejection, and fear is the perfect excuse? This doesn't mean people fake emotions. It means emotions often serve a purpose. And one of the most common purposes? Protecting us from being disliked. Let's talk about approval. Most of us were trained from childhood using reward and punishment. Good grades equals praise. Good behavior equals love. Disobedience equals withdrawal. So we grow up believing being liked equals being good. But Kishimi and Koga argue this is the root of unhappiness, because approval is never stable. It's conditional, it's subjective, and worst of all, it's out of your control. The moment you live to be praised, you surrender your freedom, because praise is just judgment wearing a nice outfit. And once someone else holds the yardstick for what's good, you start shrinking your life to fit their measurements. Congratulations, you're liked. But you're no longer free. Here's where it gets darker and a little ironic. When approval becomes the goal, life turns into a scoreboard. If someone else succeeds, it feels like you failed. If they're praised, you feel invisible. Kishimi and Koga explain this as a zero-sum mindset. There are winners and losers, and happiness feels scarce. That's why approval-seeking quietly destroys relationships. You start comparing, resenting, keeping score, and yes, sometimes secretly enjoying it when others mess up. Don't worry, psychology sees you. But here's the twist. The competition only exists if approval is the prize. Remove the prize, and suddenly the race disappears. So what's the alternative? According to Adlerian psychology, happy people don't live to be approved. They live to contribute. Not in a grand, heroic way, not to be praised, not to be noticed, but to genuinely feel, I am useful to someone. And here's the subtle genius of this idea. Once you feel useful, you stop needing recognition, because your worth isn't being voted on anymore. You don't help to be liked. You help because it feels meaningful. And yes, that means helping others is allowed to make you happy. That's not selfish, that's honest. Here's the truth most people avoid their entire lives. No matter what you do, someone will dislike you. You can be kind, disliked. Successful, disliked. Quiet, disliked. Authentic, very disliked. So the real choice isn't whether you'll be disliked. It's whether you'll live a life you believe is good, or a life built around avoiding disapproval. Happiness doesn't require confidence. It requires courage. The courage to say, this is my life, and I don't need everyone's permission to live it. The courage to be disliked isn't about rebellion. It's about freedom.
And once you let go of the need to be approved, life gets lighter, quieter, and finally, yours.